Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. Today I am joined by Master Certified Coach Bev Aron. She has not just been my coach and a mentor to me. She is someone that I did an advanced certified training with. She is someone who not just trains coaches and teaches them how to be better coaches, she even trains and certifies master coaches in their craft. And in her experience, she's been coaching for years. She has really developed a very unique way of coaching, not only her clients, but how she teaches coaching to coaches. I reached out to her about a year ago after she shared a concept in one of her amazing emails around feelings, having low frequency and high frequency feelings, and how certain emotions can create a lot of destruction in our life. The way that she shared this concept, I just knew that I wanted to bring it to the podcast. Bev is going to be teaching this concept of low frequency and high frequency emotions, why they really are a problem, and also strategic steps for how you can start to turn this around, how you can start to become aware of these tendencies. And if you find that it has really wreaked some havoc in your life, I want you to know that's not a problem. It is all turnaroundable. So without further ado, let's get into my conversation with someone who I deeply love, respect, and absolutely adore, Bev Aron. Hey everyone, welcome back to the podcast. To say that I am excited is just a little bit of an understatement. I am joined today on the podcast by my coach, my mentor, the person that I feel like I look up to the most in the coaching community. This is Bev Aron. I'm going to have her introduce herself. This is going to be such a good episode for all of you, but truly I feel like my life, I've shared Bev this with you as well offline, but I really feel like my life has just taken we've taken a couple of turns, and I really am grateful to you for that and for the coaching and the mentorship that you have given me and the skills that I learned from you. So tell us a little bit about
Oh,
you. How did you
no.
go from being number one, just not only just a superstar coach in the coaching community, but how did you become a deep dive coach? And
Hmm.
why is that important to you? Because it's very important to me.
Oh, thank you for that introduction. So beautiful. Okay, when I started being a coach, I was very, very excited about the idea that our thoughts create our reality, and you can think anything you want. Very intellectual, cerebral kind of exercise, which is exciting to me because it was like 12 years ago, and I was kind of quite academic and intellectual, and I loved piecing together things like little puzzles. And then about 8 years ago, and I got really good at that. It was like really fun. About 8 years ago, I experienced a major crisis in my life. Essentially, the way that it felt, it was like I was on sort of solid ground and then I was in free fall, and everything just became not what I knew before. And the healing process for me and the recovery process involved a lot of bodily processing, what people call somatic processing. And I realized then that's where truth is. And then, as I've been learning, as you know, the time all about relational neurobiology and all the different fields of basically how our brains work in relation to other people and in relation to the world. And so I added that in. That's the deep dive process, which I think really enhances our coaching, enhances our awareness, because like I was and like you are, and I'm sure many listeners are really good at manipulating words, but it doesn't always land for us. It doesn't change our lives. It doesn't change how we see the world. It doesn't change our experience, because our memories and our true beliefs are often stuck in our bodies. And so that's where we go in order to truly heal and truly experience the world in a way that just feels more aligned with who we are.
I love that. This is exactly correct. So, whenever somebody discovers coaching and this idea that our thoughts are creating our results, I think that first of all, it was very intoxicating for me. I mean, before coaching, I had
Yep.
this idea, I'm just who I am. This is just how I think. And I did feel very stuck in a lot of my results, and I didn't feel like I had control over them. So the discovery that, oh, wait, my thoughts are creating my results was it just pulled me right in. But I remember, I think must have been a year into coaching. I had already gotten certified as a life coach. I
Mhm.
watched you coaching someone. It was in a group coaching call. And I was immediately drawn to your style of coaching. It's next level. And somehow you were able to, in that coaching experience, you weren't just coaching on the thoughts that the person was having, you were getting behind it, or almost like
Mm,
under, like the underbelly of their belief structure. And you got to the root of
mm,
where a lot of their beliefs had been coming from. And I
yes.
remember just thinking, like, who is this amazing human? I discovered you're a master certified coach and so well known in this community. And that was when I just like, I need to work with you and become a deep dive coach. What's the impact of getting to like deep dive coaching?
Hmm. So the impact is that whatever we're storing is influencing how we feel all the time. It influences how we respond. It influences how we think about ourselves, what goals we can dream, and just how we feel when we wake up in the morning. And the on the other side of doing the work of discovering and releasing is we literally are changed without having to sort of effort the thinking. An example will be we'll remember something, but we won't feel that, that upset or that shame that we used to. It'll just be like, oh yeah, that happened. Or a client will come back and tell me a story. They'll say, this happened, and then they said this, and I said this, and said this, and I'm like, wait a minute. You're just telling this as if it was just a thing, as opposed to something that before would have really upset you. And then you would have had to work through and, yell and scream and cry. So that's why it's important, because once we really release what's stuck, then we flow through the world in a way that is so much more who we're supposed to be. And our impact is greater, our enjoyment is greater. And you are a deep dive coach, Priyanka. I mean, you are amazing at doing this now. So we
Yeah.
want to make sure that you take some credit too.
So you and me, we coached a lot on me as a mom, on my son, on my, my desires for him, how I want him to just, be this bird that flies so high. And you really coached me, not just tenderly, but also very pointedly, very like, there was like some really strong coaching where I had to acknowledge where is some of my own past experiences of me as a child coming up here. And I think that
Yeah.
getting to experience a somatic like release of where is this even coming from? Why am I putting on my son something that I experienced? That was very liberating for me.
Mm.
And I think that that's where I was like, oh, I just feel like I feel like a different mom just because of that
Right?
coaching. Yeah.
Right. And if we do it like talking, whether it's in therapy or coaching, and we go through the past, we're like, oh, I understand this. It doesn't release it. We just
Mhm.
understand it. And then maybe we were even more angry at our parents than we were, but it doesn't enable us to create to sort of really cut that generational change and create a different experience. Whereas when we go in and find it in our body and release it with so much love and acceptance, then we're changed. Then
Yeah.
we're liberated from it, is the
Yeah,
word that you
that's
use.
absolutely. And I just
Perfect.
feel lighter. Like I don't have to hold this anymore. I think it's almost like I didn't
Yes.
realize I was holding such a heavy weight in my arms all the time. I just like felt like this is just how I am or who I am. And I think this is like,
Right.
oh, I'm holding this really heavy weight that I could actually put down. So let's just talk about why did I basically hound you for the last year to have you on this podcast?
Sorry.
There was literally, guy friends, listen, I have been messaging Bev, trying talking to her team. How can we get Bev on the podcast? Because a year ago, it was June of 2023, you sent out one of your monthly value emails where you have a video and you share or teach a concept. And I always watch your videos because they're just full of such gems and so much like always dripping value as you always do. And
Thank you.
you shared a concept that you created that I would love for you to describe that's centered around finding feelings first, and the impact of this skill set. So do you want to describe what you shared, and then we'll just get into it.
So I've been coaching for 12 years and really very actively. So I start to see patterns. And a pattern that I started to notice that I hadn't seen talked about is very often our client will bring us anger, fury, blame. And if we do the deep dive coaching way and we, go into the body and explore and just give it the space, what we will almost always find is underneath that there is sadness, hurt, pain, shame. And so what I was sharing in that video is this idea that all these emotions that are uncomfortable and that don't necessarily lead to us behaving, in our best way. Some of them, many of them make us feel very kind of crumpled and weak. It's like we feel small. Then there's the ones that make us feel big, like anger, warrior, blame, self-righteous. And so what I noticed in my clients was this progression from often the first response was hurt or sad or pain, but we don't like feeling weak or small or crumpled. So we turn it into blame and anger, and then we feel sort of strong and we can conquer the world. But of course, it's not real strength. It's sort of a brittle, armored strength that has us often creating a lot of damage in our lives and our relationships, which, the sadness, it doesn't create so much damage because it's not the fighting.
What I think really struck me was I've always thought of myself as like, I feel like I'm a fairly practical minded person. I'm very logical. As you know, I'm always like very logical. And I was like, I don't think I do this. But then as I was watching your video, I'm like, oh, I really do. And it was again one of those things where I wasn't aware of this tendency. I wasn't aware of the pattern or this habit that I think must have subconsciously created. And I think many women who are listening to this, who are high achieving warriors, right, and in the workplace and of course as moms, might also be subconsciously doing that, where you feel some sadness or disappointment or regret or even guilt. I think is a big one. Worry, uncertainty. I think there's so many of these emotions that we hold as busy professional working moms that sometimes we are turning in because it feels like we're crumpling or it feels weak, we turn it into righteousness. For me, judgment, judginess, the superiority, like I know better. Anger, of course, is a big one. And the way that you phrased it in this video was, we prefer to feel the second kind. We prefer to feel the second kind because it feels more powerful. But at the same time, this is important because that's the emotions creating destruction. So how is it actually creating destruction? Because I can imagine some people thinking like, well, if it's powerful, how can it possibly be a bad thing? I'm feeling powerful, so I can take more action. I'm coming from my warrior energy. I've needed that to get through the workplace and to show up as a woman in a lot of these places, in a lot of circles that I'm in. How is it actually creating destruction?
Yes. Okay. Beautiful. So yes, sometimes in the workforce, we have to show up that way, right? If you're in a very antagonistic workplace or workplace where there's, very sort of masculine energy, you may think, I have to show up this way. But if we just compare, maybe even if your listeners are listening, when we feel truly powerful, when we're in our strength, when we know that we are, marching in our purpose and that this is in accordance with our values, our power, that kind of power feels upright and strong, but flexible and sort of moving forward. Power that comes from, superior, as you said, right? We all know it, and we sometimes have to come across that way in our work environment. It's very rigid, which means that we're going to be responding from just our habitual patterns, which often have us not seeing the person in front of us, not even noticing what's right for us. And so we may come across very adversarial, very antagonistic. We may get what we wanted in terms of the thing that we were negotiating for. But afterwards, we might feel kind of a bit sort of like yucky is the word, or a bit like we just betrayed ourselves. And also a little bit embarrassed in front of the people that we're in, not so sure. Sometimes we say things if it's more of a personal situation. Sometimes if we put on that armor, we can say things that are really destructive to the relationship. And then we have to figure out how to recover. So it's not like we don't want to feel powerful. We do, and we can. We want to distinguish between true power and this brittle armor that we're putting on with those feelings.
What I just came to mind, this is such a small, tiny example. I'm sure for anyone listening, we can have much bigger examples than the one I'm describing. But I remember there's this coffee shop next to where I live, and they have this amazing new summer menu, and they have the best. It's called the Summer Farro Salad. It is
Oh,
delicious. It has eggs and I mean, just all kinds of delicious. It's so good. And I told my
I
husband
want to go.
someday you come visit me. I'm going to take you. It's so delicious. And I told myself I had a whole plan. Monday, I was going to go to this coffee shop. I had a creative thinking
Mm.
day. I really want to just dream about just what I was envisioning for my next quarter, about the kids, about I just planning it out. I'm going to sit with my latte and the summer Farrow salad. I
Yes.
had a whole vision. I get to the coffee shop and I very happily order my summer Farrow salad. And the woman behind the register was like, "Oh, sorry, we just ran out."
Yes.
This sounds so ridiculously small, but the rage that
Yes.
I felt in that moment, you know me, I'm not even a very angry person, but like I
Right.
felt my face get hot. I
Yeah.
got snip. I'm like, I'm so sorry to say, this woman, I'm so sorry. I got a little snippy with her. I was like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? How is that possible? Like
Yeah.
like these rhetorical questions like did you run out of like salt and pepper? How is it possible that you're out of this? It was anger. I was feeling righteous. I was feeling indignant. I was feeling
Yes.
all these feelings. And it was destructive. Not only, number one, it was like rude to this poor
Hmm.
woman who's just trying to
Right.
kindly tell me, like, hey, we're out. Like she doesn't
Yeah.
control the kitchen. So it was
Correct.
destructive to her. I made myself look like a little bit of an asshole. Like I look a little bit like
Yeah.
a jerk. And I felt terrible afterwards. I'm like, what did I just do? For
Yes.
what? For summer
Yes.
farrow salad.
Yes.
So
Yes. When you were just disappointed.
I was
I
just
was
disappointed.
just disappointed. Oh.
I know. And I'm on the phone with my husband who was about to meet me there. I'm like, don't even bother coming. Maybe I'm not even going to eat here. But in that moment,
Oh my
I just really wanted
God.
this experience and I
Yes.
wasn't having my way and I just felt disappointed.
Yes.
Why do you think it is? Like, is it just that feeling disappointed feels worse than that feeling of
Yeah.
indignation or anger? Like, they just feels more uncomfortable than anger?
I don't know that it feels more uncomfortable because anger feels
It
terrible.
felt
It's
terrible. Yeah.
just, it's more scary because disappointed is weak.
Mhm.
We don't like to feel weak, right? We need to feel in control. So the disappointed is one of those sort of like crumbly. And
Yes.
if we don't know how to just soothe ourselves or comfort ourselves when we feel disappointed, it's going to feel very scary to us because we can't crumple. We always have to be functional and, out there. And so then we quickly turn it. But if we just imagine, right, if you were familiar with disappointment and you were able to just self-talk yourself. Oh, I'm so sorry, really
Mhm.
wanted it. We'll come back next Monday, I promise. Right? Then that whole experience would have just like floated through.
Right.
So that's the reason that we want to distinguish it. And actually, as we're talking about this, I'm thinking I didn't know this a year ago, but I've been studying polyvagal theory. It's becoming very popular. And I'm thinking the order they say of our nervous system activation is first is dorsal, because that's embryologically the most, which would be those crumbly, shut down. I mean, the extreme it's shut down, but the crumbly, and then we go to fight or flight, so I guess the progression actually makes sense just in terms of our neurology and how we're made.
If we think about having like a stress response, fight, flight,
Yeah.
it makes a lot of sense. This is why people logically, I'm like, I know that I'm being ridiculous right now. I know this is so
Yeah.
inappropriate, but disappointment and
Yeah.
regret and sadness, they feel scary because it's like our
Yes.
safety's on the line.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. And we're weak, so we can't get it back. So part of coaching and deep dive coaching, as you know, is we learn how to talk to ourselves during it. So we sort of shorten the event so that as you see yourself, you're like, I'm being totally
Yeah.
inappropriate. You learn to kind of flip in the moment.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. I'm so sorry. It's totally fine because in your brain you've said, we're going to be okay. This
Mhm.
is fine. We're going to have a delicious,
Yeah.
and then we're able to move through the world in a way that then we don't have to sort of feel embarrassed and go and, apologize and talk ourselves down and sort of recover from it. You lessen the amount of times it happens, both by catching it and talking yourself through. So you catch it earlier and earlier, and by regularly doing the work that you're releasing, and you don't know when it's going to be, but it'll be like a year, and you'll think, I haven't felt that rage. And you'll never be able to pinpoint, oh, it was that session, or it was that memory, or that emotion. It's just the regular clearing out of all the stuck that's in your body.
It may not just be this like one coaching call or one
Yes.
coaching experience. It's a layered approach, which is you start to catch it in different scenarios.
Yes. And for your listeners to know, making ourselves wrong increases the chances we'll do it again, because the more we think about it, the more we're imprinting it on our brain. So also
Yeah.
learning how to talk to ourselves afterwards.
Yeah.
Okay, yes, I was an asshole. It's not how I prefer to act, but this is how brains work. I just got caught up in that, nervous system right now. Everything's going to be okay. This is not who I am. And the more we can talk to ourselves about that, the more our brain relaxes. And that sort of just passes through as a thing that happened, which lessens the chance of us doing it again.
I think you're actually bringing up one of the hardest things that I have seen, at least with my clients who are high
Mhm.
achieving professional working moms.
Yeah.
There's this tone, the tone and tenor of how I think a lot of women are talking to themselves. And I'm saying myself included, who has always been an optimistic, half glass full type of person, is
Hmm.
actually fairly critical.
Yes.
And what you're talking about is like, if we just didn't do that piece, if we could
Yes.
look back with love and look back with some tenderness and compassion, then
Yes.
you're saying we would actually interrupt these cycles and be able to change some of these behaviors. But why is that
Yes.
so hard to do for so many? What are your thoughts on that?
It's hard to do if your inner voice is critical,
Mhm.
because that's what you learn. Our inner voice, all of us brilliant adults, we really are operating on, beliefs about ourselves and the world that we were given when we were very, very young. So if when I behaved badly when I was young, I was criticized, then that is how I will learn to talk to myself. Because we're meant to be in relation. That's how we develop all our ways of thinking. And so, if we think of sort of typical kind of parenting and educating when all of us were young, there was a lot of like disciplining and correcting and criticizing and punishing. So that's what we learned. And so that's the only reason that it is. And then in a simplistic kind of coaching, we can go, well, just tell yourself it's okay. Just tell yourself you're amazing.
Yeah.
But what we're learning is, if you didn't hear that from somebody else, you can say the words, but they won't land. We need that experience. And that's why coaching is such a beautiful,
Yeah.
beautiful offering for people who haven't had that experience, because the coach becomes the person who offers that. Then, as you say, your coach starts to live in your head and you start changing your inner voice to being loving and soothing.
Yeah, I think what you're saying is it's like whenever somebody says, "Oh, like just be positive," or
Yeah.
just it really feels number one like you're not actually being seen or heard in your experience, that number one.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's very manipulative to try to be
Yes.
like, let's just be positive because we have this whole idea about what positive thinking is and the value of positive thinking. But what you're talking about is that will not be able to land if there's an armor of criticism and like a habitual way of talking to yourself, which is very critical.
Yes, this is what interpersonal neurobiology is teaching us, that we need that experience of having it from another person and have it land in an ongoing way until it lands. And that's how our brains change. I mean, ideally, we got it as children.
Right. So, like for any mom, because I can hear some moms thinking, like, oh my gosh, I've messed up my children because I have
Yes.
been so critical of them. And not only critical, like I've been critical of myself, I've been critical of them. They're catching it in this conversation, like, oh my gosh, have I
Yeah.
messed up? Have I
Yes.
messed up my kids? What would you
Right.
say to this conversation about that?
Okay. Short answer is always messing up our kids, right? We never
let's
know
just let's just
what's
keep it
going
real. We're
to
always
land.
messing up our kids, my
It's
friend.
messing me up. Whenever my kids would complain, I'd say, I have to give you something to talk about in therapy in 10
Yeah.
years' time.
Yeah.
And also, because our brains are so plastic, you could start to change that right now. Listen, we're going to mess them up in one way or another. But if you want to, now that you have this awareness of how much we impact their inner voice, we can start offering thoughts that will land. We don't know which one will land. But whatever they bring, I messed up or I did badly or whatever. And if we want to offer them, that's okay. There's another time. You're still amazing, or, your potential is much bigger than you know. Any thoughts we want that we think, oh, if those became their constant tape, whoa, it would be easy for them to soothe themselves and comfort themselves. Just start offering them
Mm.
randomly whenever you think about it, and then give up the attempt to control what's going to land, what's going to be their inner voice. We don't know.
I thought you were going to say, no, we're not, you're not, you can't mess up your kids. You're like, nope, we're messing them up literally all the time.
It's like 99% my mom, and then maybe 1% the other people. So
Even understanding this idea that we are messing up, like this is just like part of the journey. Like we are
Yeah.
messing up, we're messing them up. We sometimes mess up ourselves.
Yeah.
For me, what a lot of my work was, and this is like the low vibration versus high vibration work as a mom, was the worry and uncertainty and like, is he going to be okay? And like, let me not even try to put a bubble around him, but like kind of let me see if I can exactly
Mhm.
figure out this path that like, my son is going
Yes.
to thrive because I was
Yes.
seeing areas that he wasn't thriving. I was worried about messing up so much that I was
Yes.
actually messing up. And
Yes.
that was the part that I think it was like such a, light bulb moment. I was so worried about messing up that I wasn't able to be present with who he is and how
Yes.
he actually is. I was like trying to change him, change the path. It feels somewhat adaptive, like, oh, I'm worried about this thing for my kid. I'm worried about something, and we want to prepare. So, how can we start to tell the difference
Mm,
between, this is me preparing, this is me
mm,
using my most intelligent self to plan and
mm.
prepare for the future versus trying to manipulate and control and like going into the land of worry and rumination? Like, how do we start to tell the difference?
Yeah. So it's interesting as you're talking, I'm thinking based on, our topic and that video, that's what happens, right? We notice our child struggling a bit and then we get worried, which is like a crumply emotion. Then we're like, when I'm going to put on my armor as, the mother and the mother bear, and I'm gonna like march forward and control every single thing and demand every single thing. And then it blocks us to what they really need and to being present. So what I think is, yes, we should 100% control as much as we can of the environment. In other words, I think, well, my personal belief, child's not thriving in school, find a school that was designed for your child. They need some professionals, make sure it's professionals who adore them and see. So we want to, for sure, to the best of our ability and the best of our knowledge, create an environment where they can thrive. And the way we do that is from worry, we will not make the right decisions because we're not even connected to our own intuition. So we want to do it from the understanding of, I don't know their path. I don't know their future. It's the one they're meant to have. If you believe in souls, which I do, for their soul to have the life they're meant to live and the contribution they're meant to have, and put ourselves in a space of love and adoration and appreciation, and then go find what they need and then ask what I need. It's not easy when we're in worry. We could just have a deal with ourselves. When I'm in worry, I'm probably not going to make the best decision. So I'll try not to make a decision and I'll try not to interact with them too much because they'll get our worry, right? Or we'll start to get sort of very rigid with them.
Mhm.
So just getting to know the feeling, that feeling, which I think all of us have probably had at some point in our life of, that's the right decision, or that's the right place to be, compared to, I gotta find something, that like fear of, I gotta grab it.
It feels like the difference feels almost like this graspiness, and it's coming from scarcity,
Mm,
like fear, scared, like is he going to be okay?
yeah,
Versus the feeling that I got when you were describing the alternative, it was resilience. So they both, I can
yes,
imagine, we're going to be taking action. Listen, when it comes to your kids, we're the moms, we're going to be mama bears. We're gonna like take action, of course, for the betterment of our
yes,
family, right? So the intention is
sure.
not that we're going to just sit back and like love them. That's not what we're talking
100%.
about.
No.
But what you're highlighting is when we are taking action from a place of worry and uncertainty and scarcity and fear, what's the quality of action that we're taking? Is it the
Yes,
highest quality decision? Is it the highest quality?
yes,
We can probably look back at the last year and ask ourselves, like, I don't know whether those were the best high quality decisions
right?
versus if we acknowledge the uncertainty, acknowledge like those low
Yep,
frequency emotions
yep.
and come from a place of, I think, love and adoration, maybe we can also give resilience. We get to actually pass on resilience to our kids too.
Honestly, it's true because those lower emotions that we're talking about are more open, which makes it easier for us to access the love and the wonder of our child.
Mm.
At the same time, the uncertainty and the unknown. And we just, again, our inner voice, we just say to ourselves, of course, you want certainty. You want to know he's going to be okay. You want to be able to control it. And we can't.
I know. And that's the hard, that's the bitter, that's this
No.
bitter pill, friends. It's like this bitter
Yes.
pill. And also, that doesn't mean you're powerless.
A
I think that
hundred
that's
percent.
so important. So it's true that we cannot exactly predict the full path forward. I can't control the full path, but I can control my experience of the path that we are on.
Correct.
That's
I
very
think
powerful.
yes, it only makes us feel powerless if we think we should be able to control it.
Mm.
If we understand the nature of the world, not only parenting is we can't and we don't really know, then we can be, okay, so what can I do? I
Mm.
can be super connected. I can absolutely find what I think will make him thrive from a place of that connectedness
Mhm.
and the acceptance, which is very hard, I think, and people really rail against, is we're not supposed to be able to control it all or predict it all.
Yeah.
Part of
And
our
I think
job.
like this is also the piece, and I feel like I've seen this with both my kids, but time will tell how kind of
Yeah,
what they pick up, are they picking up what I'm putting down? I don't know. But I'm
exactly.
so curious because, when we are coming from a place of that worry and fear, I suspect that our kids start to think, oh, me having this trouble is a problem.
I agree with
Me
you.
having this challenge, me being disappointed or upset about something is a problem for my mom, for
I
my
agree with you.
family. And now they
Yes.
don't just have to navigate the problem. Now they have to navigate they try
Yes.
to navigate your feelings.
Yes.
That's a
Exactly.
lot to put on a child.
It's a lot, right?
Oh, these little kids have a lot to deal with.
Okay. As they should have.
And I think this is where we kind of get to step into what would it be like if we didn't give them that burden, right? Like let them
Yes.
navigate their challenge. They're going to have the disappointment and they're going to get, all of their challenges that they're going to have. What if we did our own work of not making that a problem? I think that's huge.
Totally. It doesn't mean we don't go to the principal if the child's been bullied. It doesn't mean we definitely not saying, just like sit back and go, oh, I love you, child. But yeah, what if we navigated from that? This
Mhm.
is not a problem. I'm not supposed to be solving this. It's not going to ruin their life. This is what they're meant to be experiencing.
Yeah,
Then know how will I support them in that? And them know that in my eyes, they are always perfect.
that's right. I love that. And one of the things you shared at the end of your video, which is like how to use this kind of awareness now that there's these low frequency emotions, high frequency emotions, and we have a tendency of flipping into high frequency. You shared that a question that we can start to ask ourselves is where am I puffing myself up when what I really want to do is crumble? And that's where our truth is. That's where real is. How do you
Yes.
think someone can practically just start to put this into practice? Is that it? Just asking ourselves this question, or do you have any other thoughts strategically for how someone can start to apply this?
Yeah. So having a question like that, but front of mind, so we have it maybe on our computer screen as our reminder. Maybe we have it as an alarm that comes up every now and then. What it will do is it will have it not obsessing sort of, but in our minds. So when we start to puff up, we'll notice it quicker. Be like, oh, this is the puffing up. And then, depending on the situation, listen, if you're at home and it's happening, can I just do what I want to do, which is maybe go lie down and have a cry or have a bath or whatever. If I'm at work, could I just maybe excuse myself? I mean, go to the bathroom is the best way really, when you just need like a quick reset, or could I go and have a walk? So it's really having a question or a thought that helps us remember. So we catch it, like you've said when you were describing the restaurant experience, we catch it before or at least in the middle of the interaction that we would prefer not to be having.
Yeah.
And then we talk ourselves down, as we said. And even if we catch it at the end, we still talk ourselves down beautifully. And then we keep moving more and more towards the beginning of it. It's just awareness. There's no other way.
To everyone listening, I think, Bev, like what I'm hearing you say is that it's possible to acknowledge and recognize, like, where is it that I want to crumple? And also, I can go take action.
You can, in a meeting, be very sad and no one can know.
Right.
I remember once I used to work in a hospital and my director was leaving. And so we were having this meeting where she was, dumping all her work on all of us. And it was a really terrible meeting, very tense. So we walked out. I said to my friend, whoa, that was terrible. She's like, you looked so calm. And I was like, oh, I was just breathing. I don't even know what anyone said. No
Right.
one could tell that inside I was really worried. So, because your audience are working women, I can be sad, I can be hurt, I can feel shame. It doesn't mean I'm going to crumple. It will make me feel weaker, but I can talk myself through it. I'm feeling really ashamed right now.
Mm.
It's okay. I can still be at this meeting. I can have the shame because we're so brilliant. We can have thoughts and feelings. They just come and go. So I can have the shame and I can also be attentive and pay attention.
What you're reminding us is that you can have an inner monologue happening
Yes.
on the inside where you truly
Yes.
are your most fiercest advocate on the inside. Like, I
Yeah.
can see this shame is here. I can see that I feel sad about this. I feel this guilt. I feel this regret. I feel this, whatever it is. We
Yeah.
can hold that and at the same time show up in our workplace or with our family or in front of our children from a
Yes.
place that really is the way that we want to be showing up.
100%. And maybe later on we go figure out what's going on,
Mm,
call our coach, whatever we want to do. But yes, 100%.
I
We're
love that.
so smart.
Just to wrap up, I'm curious, do you feel like this is this kind of work that you can just do this on your own? So first of all, everyone, if you've seen it, you can't unsee it. I really love
Yes.
that philosophy. I believe it so much. And at the
Yes.
same time, do you think this is the kind of work that someone should be doing with a coach?
Hmm.
Or is this just self-work? What do you think in terms
Hmm.
of the balance
Hmm.
between the two?
Yeah, I think it depends on where you're at with that inner voice in terms of how you're able to talk to yourself. I think the popular sort of personal growth literature is all about do it yourself, right? Because it makes it more accessible. And I think it's worth a try for sure because of this so emerging field of interpersonal neurobiology, which tells us we learn in relationship. If your habit is so strong and you've learned it and it's what you've done so strong to just, become that warrior, go straight to rage, go straight to criticism, it's going to be challenging because you're going to need to have the experience of the comfort, of the soothing, of the acceptance in you in order to draw on.
Even I'm thinking about so many times that we've coached together. I
Yeah.
would be sharing with you what feels just like truth. I'm just
Yeah.
sharing with you what feels like fact in my mind. And I think in every instance, and I'm like, I've got this. Like logically, I can self-coach on this. I know that my thoughts create my feelings, and I can see that that's a lot of where my work was because what you would reflect back to me, I would really be stumped. You would show me blind spots that I did not
Mhm.
realize were blind spots. You would show me
Yes.
perspectives that I'm like, I didn't even think that I was thinking that way.
Yes. So my theory on this is trying to find it ourselves. Our brain is this closed system and it created the problem. And
Right.
now we're saying diagnose the problem and treat it, brain that cause. And then I think it's always worth a try. I do believe everyone in the world needs a life coach, and there's so many ways to access life coaching. And so why would we try to do it on our own? I never tried. I just like to save it for a coach. And then, as you say, the coach, not because I'm anything special, but just because I'm not in your brain having created the problem, coach can show it to you, and then we're off to the races.
When your brain has created the problem, it's like this confirmation bias. We want
Right?
ourselves to be right. It's
Yeah.
like Bev with me would say something. I'm like, what do you mean? Because you
Yep.
feel like you're trying to defend your truth. But
Yes.
what I have also discovered is whenever I'm in defensive energy, trying to defend something or convince myself, I'm just fighting for my status quo. And I'm
Right.
only here in coaching because I want more than my status quo. That has
Yes.
helped me totally be like, I can drop the facade of needing to know it all the time. And this is a high achiever's problem, friends.
Yes.
Like you need to
Totally.
have it together all the time.
Yep. And if you're fighting for your status quo, you're doing well. Most people will fight for their limitations, right? Because as you say, we want to be right. This is what I believe.
Yeah.
And
So
somebody
the
else.
question is, do you
Yeah.
want to be right or do you want to grow? And do you want to like really
Yes.
create more of this? And this is like, and I feel like we can
Yes.
just keep on going on this topic. This is like just so much there.
So good.
I love it. This was such a good conversation. Bev, thank you for coming on the podcast. I love it. This was such a good concept. I think everyone that is listening, just start to catch where am I puffing myself up? That maybe I have been wanting to crumble. This is such a
Oh.
nice, tender question. Know that it does not mean that you are weak, just acknowledging it and just allowing yourself the space to answer the question. So, Bev, how can everyone find you? Where can we get more of your
Good.
wisdom?
So good. Thank you for asking. So my website is bevaron.com. And simplest way is sign up for as Priyanka said, I send a monthly video of how to take your work deeper. I also send weekly insights called Friday Coach Insight. The videos are less than 3 minutes and the emails are like less than a 20-second read, designed for coaches, but really for anybody who is wanting to do the inner work. And then the second easiest way to access me is I have a monthly deep dives with Bev series where we study a monthly topic, and I always give my perspective, which, as you may have gathered from the podcast, is always different to the norm. And then we do a lot of coaching. So it's a way to get coaching at a very, very reasonable cost.
I love
And
it.
we're going
Yeah.
to be selling in August, like the year of it. The really good offer.
I love it. I'm so excited.
Thank
And
you.
friends, get on her email list because these monthly videos, I mean, this video that you released around this low frequency, high frequency feeling was a year ago. And it still is something that I just noticed, right? So Bev
Wow.
has some wisdom. You need to be on her email list. It's amazing. And just little insights.
Thank
It's like little
you.
moments, little light bulbs that not only do I really believe in this. I feel like when we do the work ourselves, it does go to the next generation. And we are
100%.
gateways for our children. I have seen it with
Yes.
weight loss. I have seen it with how I talk about my body with my children and how I make
Yes.
everything. We're the
Yes.
gateway. So if we
Yes.
have these insights, we get to pass it on. And I think it's
We do.
so worth
We
it.
do. If I can just say, I just remembered something. All of my videos are on YouTube. So
Oh,
people go and watch this video that you're talking about right
wait,
now. They're
seriously?
all, yeah, I just remembered. They'll
I
go on
didn't
YouTube.
know this. Okay, so friends, in the show notes, I'm going to be putting all the links,
Thank
including the
you.
actual video to the video that Bev shared from a year ago. It's a short
Brilliant.
video. Go watch it. Even though you listen to this episode, I think it's just lovely. I did not know you had a YouTube channel. What?
Don't think I remembered either. I told it.
I love it. Okay, we're going to throw that into the show notes for everyone. Bev, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. This is such a joy. And honestly, I'm so grateful that you exist, that our orbits collided at some point long
Yes,
ago. I'm just grateful to the universe that it happened the way it did. Thank you so
me
much.
too. Thank you so much for having me. It's so fun.
Bye, everyone. See you next week. I hope you'll enjoy today's podcast conversation with Bev Aron and the concept that we talked about today, low frequency and high frequency emotions. I completely agree with Bev. I think that just being aware of this topic is going to create a shift for you. Just listening to this podcast episode is going to help you catch some of these experiences. And also, we were highlighting is sometimes when your brain is the one that is creating the problem, your brain is the one that has created a lot of these habits, it is sometimes hard to get out of that experience on your own. If you know that you want to have a coach in your corner to teach you these skills, to show you your blind spots, and you want to work with me, then I invite you to send me an email at info@theunstoppablemombrain.com. And we will talk about how we can work together in my intimate small group, the Unstoppable Group. This is an experience for high achieving working moms who want to burn stress and lose fat in a way that truly feels sustainable for a lifetime. If that's something you want, I would love to see an email in my email inbox from you, and I will see you all next week. Bye.